John Deal, House Majority Leader. Jane Duker is former Chief of Staff, filling in for Governor Holden, I should say. Tony Messenger out. James Scholes from the Show Me Institute in. James, recently in California, they ruled that teacher tenure is unconstitutional. What are your thoughts on that?
This is a really incredible case, McGraw v. California. So basically, these 9 students in a low-income school sued the state and said the teacher tenure statutes and several other statutes disproportionately hurt poor kids, because what happens is the bad teachers end up getting a permanent contract and get funneled to the poor schools, and so those kids get the worst teachers. So they sued the state over they have what's called an equal opportunity or equal protection sort of bill in their constitution, saying that disadvantaged kids in these poor schools don't have access to high quality teachers like kids in other schools. And for the judge to rule that this does violate the Constitution, he had to find that teacher tenure protected bad teachers and resulted in more of them being in low-income schools. And that's exactly what he concluded, and he said this is unconstitutional, violates California's state constitution. So, I mean, it doesn't carry any precedent for us, but as we've seen in other law cases, there was a big legal case in California in the 70s on school finance. And we're still seeing the after effects of that, where other states had similar lawsuits. We had one here in Missouri that was similar to the one in California. So this is something that could spread, where students sue the state over policies if they're receiving a low-quality education.
So as of now, teacher tenure in California is no more. So every teacher that had tenure in California no longer has it?
Well, they stayed, he stayed the rulings. It's going to be challenged.
Right. Pending appeal.
Right. So it's still in place right now. It could go a different way in the higher courts. But I think what it does is it really sets a strong precedent that there is the possibility to sue your state over the quality of the education you're receiving. And the other thing I think it does is it really shows the problems with teacher tenure. California's system's a little bit different.
Well, there's a whole lot of people in Missouri who would want to sue the state for the quality of education they're receiving.
Oh, I don't doubt it. They just have to look at state statutes now and see if there's something there, or state constitution, see if there's something there that this is violating. I mean,
Jane is furiously scribbling down notes.
No, I
she's out there following the lawsuit.
She's politely waiting for her turn, which is not common for me.
There is money to be made here.
Jane Duker, what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, first of all, I mean, I am for students being able to sue the state to get better education. But what is very interesting about this case is you have a lot of conservatives that now want to expand judicial activism beyond where it's ever gone before. This is basically a case about we want to sue under the Constitution for guaranteed results as opposed to equal opportunity. And the Equal Protection Clause has always been construed by the U.S. Supreme Court on downward that you guarantee opportunity, not specific results. However, hold on, I get my shot. Now, What is missing in the argument in this lawsuit is, okay, we're saying teacher tenure laws are bad, not that the people administering them suck. This is the deal. And you can argue that teacher tenure is the problem, but it's not, because if you have administrators that refuse to weed out bad teachers, teacher tenure, all it does is, in Missouri, is guarantee a contract or a school year. That's fine. But if you have administrators that refuse to do the work to get rid of bad teachers and to come out and say this teacher sucks and I'm getting rid of this teacher, then getting rid of all the
teacher tenure says I can't get rid of these bad teachers.
No. You can get rid of them for cause. If they are a bad teacher, you can get rid of them under our laws now.
But the cause is so difficult to do.
Being a bad teacher should be enough. So if that's the problem, you don't throw out teacher tenure laws because people aren't enforcing them correctly. If the cause needs to be expanded, that it's test scores or whatever you want to say is cause and what teachers and their expectations ought to be. And if teachers aren't meeting expectations, that is grounds to get rid of them. So I think, I disagree with the way they got there, because I think that expands the way the Equal Protection Clause has ever been used. However, I agree that if students in Missouri does not provide a lot of ways to do it, trust me, I've looked. Where you are suing to say, I am entitled to a certain type of education, because you're not. And we need to do more in this state to elevate education. Education is not like a right. in Missouri. It's not something I can go and sue about if I'm not getting what I need. And I think we ought to elevate education to that level, and we haven't done that in Missouri. But bite the bullet and say, because once you do that, though, then you got to fund it,
so
and then you got to own it.
Even though you agree with the sentiment, you disagree
with the way they got there
legally. You agree with his opinion, but you say that he did it wrong.
Policy. I agree that the policy is right. If bad teachers are disparately going to low income and minority schools, that is wrong. That violates the law. But it's not the teacher tenure law that does it. It's administrators that have put bad teachers in places.
I've learned something. I've learned something about you. Your mother and your husband are saints. Because I don't understand a word you're saying. John Deal, go ahead.
Well, I'm scratching my head too.
Find the right cause of your problem.
But here's, look, I think when you boil this down, it's pretty simple. One of the problems that we have in this country and in government is that there seems to be a system in place where people who are paid by taxpayer dollars are afforded more protections to guarantee their job and their benefits than those in the private sector. Okay, we should not, whether it's a teacher or whether it's a teacher, I get my moment, or someone working in the Capitol, or hey, we're term limited. I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody that gets their salary paid by taxpayer dollars, okay, ought to be held accountable to the taxpayers on a regular basis. And I have no problem with teacher tenure reform. I have no issue with, if you're not doing your job, it should be easier, much easier, without years of litigation and years of spending more taxpayer dollars to get rid of a teacher who's not performing in the classroom. So, I think what's happened in the California suit, without reading it, but just gleaning from what these two more knowledgeable people have talked about, is that one, I think it probably was based upon equal opportunity. And the theory of the equal opportunity was because under California law, even though there may be an ability to get rid of the teacher on the books, practically speaking, it's virtually impossible. So what the school districts were doing was sending all their lowest performing teachers to the schools that were the lowest performing. And because of that, the children didn't have equal opportunity, instead of just being able to get rid of the bad teachers without an enormous cost to the taxpayers. I think most teachers do a wonderful job, but the reality is it's very, very difficult to get rid of those who don't.
The argument for teacher tenure among them is older teachers, more experienced teachers cost more money. So if there's no protection, you can fire the more experienced, more costly teacher for a younger, newer teacher that doesn't make any money, and so there needs to be some protections for that older, better paid teacher.
How does that happen for radio hosts?
Well, that's why you see the garbage you do on the radio.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's...
well, but just pick any business up and down. That's theoretically true for any business, and I'm not suggesting, and I don't think anyone is suggesting that you can do it for no reason or for cost reasons, for age. We have laws which ought to be equally enforced against entities like that you cannot discriminate on the basis of age,
real quick,
race.
Public education is about kids. It's about
giving
kids an education. It's not about providing jobs to teachers. So, I mean, if we want a policy in place that's going to benefit students, that's what we need to look at. How can we create policies that benefit students the most? And as California found out, and their laws are a little bit different than ours, they're saying that teacher tenure in California doesn't benefit students, and it's not due process for teachers. There's a great quote. They call it uber due process. So it's not a best policy for students, and if we think about what's best for students, I mean, that's what we need to do. We need to think about what's best for students.
That's James Scholes from the Show Me Institute, John Deal, House Majority Leader, and Jane Duker. We'll come back and wrap things up with a parting shot, the board meeting on the Big 550.